this morning. I guess I'm elected to be chair for a few minutes until Jake gets here. So anyway, we call the meeting to the ERC to order, and we'll start by Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, moving on this morning then. Kirsty, you want to take over here on the number? I think we're on number 3, right?
Yes.
A.
Yes, ERC introductions and backgrounds. So I want to apologize for being up here and not sitting down by you, but this is where we have to advance the PowerPoint slides is from here. So I feel a little bit disjointed from you all, but I'll try to come sit down and join you when I can. Welcome to our meeting today. We are so thankful that you all took the time to be here. It is very infrequent that we would have a special meeting similar to this, just to gather at a time when it's not even a crisis. A lot of times when we have special meetings in county government, it's because we're in like DEFCON 3 and some very hard decisions need to be made and it's a do or die moment. But we wanted to take this opportunity to talk with you about conservation topics because as much as we love our monthly ERC meetings, those of you that have been around long enough know that about 85% of it is usually filled with zoning issues. And so a lot of times we'll get to pop a conservation topic maybe right in at the end, maybe 10 minutes or so. And by that time, everyone is mentally and emotionally exhausted. And so we don't really get to that point where we can dive into some of these topics with you. And it was great to see so many of you at the Land Conservation Committee training that Wisconsin Land and Water held a few weeks ago. I really think that time together put us in a good spot to have us all on the same page in regards of the most powerful team in a county to protect natural resources is a team where a land conservation committee, ours is named ERC, and land conservation staff are working together in unity towards the goals of natural resources policy for the county. So unless we have some type of relationship with you all, we will never be able to get where we want to get together. And so today's meeting is going to be really relaxed, casual. If you guys are comfortable with it, I would absolutely love to allow the meeting to just kind of flow naturally and have you all ask questions and provide input as we speak versus more presentation style where there's someone talking at you for 10 minutes and then, you're allowed to ask questions. So please feel free to provide us comments. We do have a different agenda than you that lays out specific timelines that we'd like to spend on each topic. So if we feel like we're getting too much into the weeds or spending too much time on one of these topics, we'll work with you just to make sure that we're moving along to keep up with the timeline for the day. So that being said, we're going to take some time just to do a little bit of introductions to get to know each other a little bit better. We'll let you guys hear from us in terms of our backgrounds and who we are, but we would absolutely love to know more about you. When we were trying to brainstorm an agenda for this meeting, that actually went to the top of our list in terms of what are your backgrounds and why do you have a desire to be on ERC? And I know just talking personally with many of you, I've learned that a lot of you do have a background in agriculture or more of rural sociology types of things. So we're just fascinated to hear your backgrounds. And if I had to guess, if you guys had a choice in choosing to be an ERC, I'm just going to guess that it probably wasn't because you're super passionate about rezones. Maybe some of you are. Maybe when we're going through all those rezones at our monthly meeting, you are just absolutely jacked and that's your adrenaline rush for the month. But I am guessing that a lot of you do have a desire to be involved in managing our natural resources for the county. So we'd love to hear, where your interests lie and what your backgrounds are. So, Rick, you are the closest to me. Just feel free to just give maybe how long you've been on ERC and then a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thank you, Christy. My name's Rick Seefeld. I've been on the board. This is my 5th term. Been with ERC since the start in 2016. I represent District 14, which is on the very eastern part of the county. I live only about a mile away from Shawano County line, and the reason I'm on ERC is that I am involved a lot with conservation planning for your soils and waters, and I also do represent Park, Rec, and Forestry, and with the forestry and the parks, we want to keep those going strong. So I hope my inputs can keep it going. But ERC, it's a different committee to be on. It like Christy said, the meetings are sometimes longer than what they should be, but everything has to get done.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I'll pass it on now.
Thank you much. I've been on for, this is my 5th terms, same as Rick there, and I was appointed at first to ERC, and after a while, then the committees combined, and so we weren't planning on zoning at first, but I guess we are now. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, I work with farmers a lot, and so I'm constantly picking their brains on different things, which helps on this committee a lot. And I represent District 31, which is on the western side, just the opposite of Rick here. So anyway,
awesome.
That's
perfect.
That's about it.
Thanks, Al. Sure is.
My name is Tom Miller. I was appointed on this committee about 2 months ago. I'm a third-generation farmer, a dairy farmer in western Marathon County in Athens. We're at the heart of environmental resources in that industry, good and bad. So I felt it might be of value to be on this committee. I was on the 10-year planning committee for the county as well.
For the Land and Water Resource Management Plan. Yeah, it's a mouthful, but yeah, thanks, Tom.
Great, thank you. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is John Kroll. I am supervisor for District 1, which is the southeast side of Wausau. I got to meet many of you at the last Wisconsin Land and Water training, which was wonderful. So thank you for attending. So for me personally, my background is in energy efficiency. So it's a different avenue, but I've traveled the state providing a lot of weatherization, like assistance for low income individuals. And the other major piece is that I have 2 young daughters that were very passionate about the outdoors. So we want to protect all of the land resources that we have. So thank you.
Marilyn Bend, I have been on ERC since it was created, I don't know how many years ago. I represent towns, and I don't have a vote, but I do speak, and I'd like to say that Miltrim Farms is in the town of Johnson, where I've been a clerk since 1991. Mm-hmm.
Morning, everybody. I'm Jay Shaneborn, fairly new, first term, District 18 down by Rothschilds. What I've decided to focus with the ERC is that I'm learning, and I'm going to be more involved in looking at some different avenues here for all you people. Be bipartisan, and I really kind of want to show my interest since the business that I am running, I'm almost have it sold. And I can give a lot more time to this. And feel free I'm always, my ears are open to use all. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Randy DeBrew, Supervisor, District 11, which is all in the city of Wausau. But I grew up on a farm, farmed in Marathon County for about 15 years near Hamburg. So I have I was also involved in different farming businesses. So I really enjoy and have an interest in agriculture and our water and our land. And I never dreamt years ago we'd be buying bottled water, but we are. So that makes me, and there's no more land available either, so we have to preserve what we have. So that's my story.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you guys for taking the time to share that with us. We each put together just a couple quick little slides that will hopefully help you get to know us a little bit. So Ken is the first one up. Do we want to use the microphone down there? You're good? Okay.
I'm Ken Pozorski. I don't know if there was any rationale behind the order of this, but I'm kind of the more senior person in the office. It was great to have you guys introduce yourselves and understand where you come from and what you do. So thank you. This was just an idea that let you guys know what each of us do and maybe give you some personal perspective of who we are. So some of the things that I work on in the office, I'm a conservation analyst, and I've kind of grown through the years. I've worn a variety of different hats, and I've kind of grown into those. But primarily, I work with the regulatory administration, and that would involve the ordinances that our office regulates, and that would be the Animal Waste and Management Ordinance and the Livestock Licensing Ordinance. I also do design review, and that's for primarily manure storage facilities and farm expansions. So that's needed for the next part, and that's for the permitting of those facilities or license. And also, I'm involved with the inspection and monitoring of structures like manure storages or livestock licensings, continual placement on the landscape, make sure that they're following performance standards and prohibition standards. And then also I'm doing tracking. So I came in 1991, and at that time it was because of the state of Wisconsin had what was called the priority watershed programs, and it was a strong effort from the state to find and work with areas of the state where there's problem areas in the water resources. And Marathon County had the Big Old Plain Reservoir, and we still do, that has a problem. So it was designated in early 1980 or mid 1980s as a priority watershed. So I came on in 1991. The Big Old Plain, the upper Big Old Plain had already started. I came in, and the lower Big Old Plain watershed was started. So they needed somebody to do the inventory, and they also needed additional technical assistance. From there, I've kind of gone from a technical standpoint to more of a specialist in designing. And so a lot of our work was designing and implementing manure storage facilities and oversight of the animal waste ordinance. I also get into livestock licensing, and that's dealing with farms that are over 500 animal units, and that's basically like 300 dairy cows, if you give you a perspective as to when that license is required in the county. So it's a kind of a stepping stone for farms to get prepared to eventually become a confined animal feed operation, otherwise known as a CAFO, where they're permitted through the state of over 1,000 animal units. And also get into grant application and administration, and that's trying to get additional funding for our department to implement conservation practices. We've been very successful at the county in getting those, and a lot of those are targeted resource management grants, and a lot of those were individuals that I had written for individual farmers, but that's kind of grown into, and we'll talk about it later, into large-scale watershed programs, and right now we have the Fenwood Creek watershed that we're implementing. So a little bit about myself. Yeah, so I'm a lifetime resident of Marathon County, 33 years here at the county. I graduated from Stevens Point, and I won't say what year, but it was a while back. Water resource management with the emphasis in watershed management and a soil science minor. I have a strong interest in the outdoors. We like to enjoy getting out as much as possible, whether it be hunting or taking the family on some crazy expeditions down the Arkansas River. We also like to enjoy many of the places that Wisconsin has to offer. Lighthouse that my wife and I just recently visited. And also, one of the things that I've been getting into is kind of a health freak, and I'm starting to do some running. And just recently, I participated in my first 5K run, and I took first place. So,
Ben,
yeah.
way to go. We didn't even know that. That's fun news.
Did you know George Kraft at the Gal Water Center?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, so good morning. I'll stay seated here if that's fine. So Kirk Langfoss, I'm kind of like Ken, one of the older dogs around here, not quite as long, 27 years almost with Marathon County. But so I just put together a few slides just to talk about myself, a little bit about the early years, so 70s. I was born and raised, actually born in Madison, but raised in Marshfield, out in rural Marshfield. I say on the banks of the Yellow River. We had 6.5 acres. Out in farm country. I didn't grow up on a farm, but I grew up working on all the neighbors' farms in 4-H, FFA, showed cattle at the fair, showed hogs a couple times. So I was a country kid through and through. And that's really what kind of fostered my interest in conservation and agriculture. I graduated from Marshfield High School and then UW Stevens Point in 1993, and I worked for. Go to the next slide. Actually, my major was in resource management with double minor, soil science and natural science. And then career-wise, I worked for right out of college about almost 4 years in Polk County, Northwest Wisconsin. Was totally happy out there, but a job opened in Marathon County, and I thought, what the heck, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. And here I am almost 27 years later. I moved back to central Wisconsin, really like the central Wisconsin area. So let's see, a couple other things. I started, like I said, in 1997. Back then it was called the Land Conservation Department, which is similar to what we are today. But moved back, like I said, and my wife and I had 5 kids, so never thought I'd be a family or a father of a big family, but still got 3 teenagers at home, so I'm still kind of busy with that. And throughout the years, I've had a couple different positions. I basically doing kind of what I am today, but I started off as a conservation specialist 1, then a 2, and now I guess coined a conservation analyst. Go ahead. So a couple of things that I work on, primarily farmland preservation program, which you'll hear about a little bit more today in passing in some of our meetings. And it's basically a conservation program for rural property owners, not necessarily farmers, but larger property owners, even forest owners, cropland owners, farm owners, who get a tax incentive for following good farm management practice, so soil and water conservation practices. Another thing, nutrient management planning, and it's basically managing fertilizer and manure on farms, so assist farmers with working on that and assist the co-ops and agronomists in the area on meeting the requirements of nutrient management planning. Conservation Reserve Program is another one that I do. If you've been around for a while, you think of kind of the old set-aside programs you might have heard about, but this is a program where you more or less retire cropland for a period of time, put it in good wildlife habitat, water quality habitat, protect soil and water resources. Some other things, those are my primary areas, but I dabble in lots of other animal waste ordinance, like Ken had mentioned, with respect to nutrient management, compliance, enforcement, things like that. And then on all aspects, and we'll we'll talk about this later today, the Land and Water Resource Management Plan. There's lots of ancillary programs that go along with that, so I work on those also. One last thing, I guess, wanted to let you know, if you're involved in the organization that is for all conservation staff and land conservation folks, is the North Central Area Land and Water Conservation Association. I'm the treasurer of that. So you're all members of that by default too, and we do have a tour and meeting coming up in a couple weeks here, so I invite you to come to that. But I guess that's a quick rundown of me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt Repking. Work with animal waste ordinance. I'll get into my history a little bit at the end, but I'll just kind of go through my job duties first. Animal waste ordinance, do a lot with administration of it. Complaints, involved with quite a few complaints, and get involved with the track. I'm involved with a lot of the tracking and data management of all of our programs. So, looking at stuff through our GIS, our geographic information system, we're tracking where manure pits are located, where we have complaints, farmland preservation, who's involved in that program. So we do a lot of different tracking to see where programs are and who's involved with them. Go ahead and go to the next slide.
I did have to tease Matt and Ken just a little bit because their very first slide with their names both had manure on it. I'm like, well, classic. We deal with a lot of manure in our department.
Kirk and I also work with quite a few farmers on nutrient management, and we actually teach a class which we'll go through later. But we work with farmers on looking at their crop rotation, suggestions for fertility. Our class, we usually have between 40 and 60 farmers a year that attend our class and write their own plans, and then they're required to come once every 4 years. So, there's a couple hundred farmers usually within the county that are coming through our class over a rotation. I'm involved with quite a few different cost share programs, trying to get guys to try different things that are out of their comfort zone usually a little bit. Cover crops is one. Another one is, reduce tillage, trying to keep or do as much tillage as is necessary for them to get their crops in, but also try to keep our residue and soils covered as much as possible to protect our water, groundwater. So we work with a lot of different cost share programs to get different conservation out on the landscape. Data management. This has kind of evolved since I've been in here, but we have quite a few different databases for tracking things, several different programs. And the reason we need to track all this stuff really is when it comes down to it, is to show what type of improvements we are making or reductions we're having. And then also, when we have to do reporting to the state or federal government, we have to show what that money is going towards. So that's a very important part of my position, is tracking. A little about me. Grew up on western side of Marathon County. I've been around farming my entire life. My parents had a dairy farm, which eventually transitioned to a beef operation. Before my position here at Marathon County, I actually managed a large farm in southern Wisconsin for 7 years. I've been with, like the county I said, for 10 years. My background is soils and agronomy, and I just love the outdoors and spending time outdoors with my family. So we're always doing things outside, so just to try to protect those resources into the future.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brooke Bembenek. I'm the Conservation Grazing Analyst with Marathon County. A little bit about myself. My background in schooling, I have a Bachelor's of Science in Soil and Land Management from UW Stevens Point. There, I studied the effects of vermicompost and vermicompost tea on ginseng production in Marathon County. So I worked quite a bit in Marathon County as an undergrad. I also had an internship at the Marshfield Ag Research Station during that time. So I worked on the dairy heifer herd there and got animals out on pasture rotationally grazing there. I also have a Master of Science degree in agroecology from UW-Madison, where I studied the effects of 3 different grazing management intensities on water quality in Marathon County as well. I've been with Marathon County for 3 years. So I started in 2021 as the conservation specialist, which is Caleb's role now, working with our producer-led group EPIC, the O'Plain Partnership for Integrated Conservation, and then was promoted to grazing analyst in 2022. So I just hit my 2-year anniversary there for that. So my work duties as conservation analyst include providing technical assistance to landowners who want to implement managed grazing on their property. So I write a lot of grazing plans and make sure that those people are successful in implementing a brand new system on their farm. I provide a lot of education and outreach opportunities for landowners to learn more about managed grazing. So I host pasture walks all summer, spring, fall, winter, have pasture walks going on for educational opportunities. I also host the Heart of Wisconsin Grazing Conference, which has been going on for 31 years now. So that's a one-day conference for people to learn about and be educated about managed grazing at a higher level. And I also provide cost sharing to landowners who want to implement grazing, so helping them cover the costs of fencing, water lines, stuff like that. So a little bit background about me. That's a picture of my family up there we just took over the July 4th weekend up at our cabin on Lake Alice in Tomahawk. I'm a native to central Wisconsin, so I grew up in Stevens Point. Went to school in Stevens Point. I'm now in Marathon County, and I am in this job because I love our natural resources and I love enjoying them. So I love biking and hiking, swimming, kayaking, and I'm a big plant and bird nerd.
Hi, everybody. My name's Caleb Armstrong. As Brooke said, I'm the conservation specialist now. I'm kind of a goofier position compared to everybody else here. I'm a partnership position, so I work for Marathon County Conservation Planning and Zoning and also the NRCS, which is the National Resource Conservation Society. So I always say I wear two hats. Because it's nice I get to work for two groups, but also use both programs to assist. So my main job around here is the EPIC coordinator. As Brooke said, it's the Old Plain Partnership for Integrated Conservation. That's the whole entire big Old Plain watershed. I'll go on here, and I don't necessarily work with like specific programs, but my position is all around soil health. So like I said, I wear two hats because I get a dip into both programs. So that's where using these practices, I can go through it. So a lot of the practices, I guess you can say I stick with for the most part are cover crops, residue management, and then our conservation reserve enhancement program. So as Kirk said, that's where we're taking land out of agriculture and putting it into like a buffer or pollinator. One misconception there is everybody says we're taking land out of production. I always say that's false. The land's still staying in production because they do get a payment on that as an annual, and you're also improving your water quality and improving your soil health. So that's just kind of my I guess you can say expertise. I know some of the stuff is meeting with landowners, trying to figure out a plan and how we can put that onto their farm. Some part of my job that is kind of a fun part to do is we do on-farm research a lot. So me and others in our group, I know Tom is part of that as well. We like to do demo days and field days. So we will ask farmers to kind of, like we say, get out of their comfort zone and try something new. Put something on the ground that might, raise some eyebrows to some of their neighbors and spark interest, saying, "Hey, why are you doing that? Why are you putting in this different kind of practice?" And it's always good because it gets the conversation going, and a lot of times it leads to other interests as well. So a little bit about me. I grew up in northern Wisconsin, specifically Park Falls, Wisconsin, and so it's a very small town up north. Went to University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, graduated there with a land and soil management major. Worked for about 5 years in conservation. I was in Wood County for 4 years before I came here as a conservation specialist. So very similar job role, but just wanted to get back up north. A lot of my family's from Tomahawk, so move up in this area was my whole goal all along. So I have a big passion for the outdoors and love for the outdoors. If you can see, I got a fish there. I love to fish, hunt, basically anything outside. So that really sparked my interest at a young age going into conservation. My uncle would grab me, bring me on grazing tours when I was about 8 years old, and from then on I said I was going to be a soil health. So a little bit about me.
Good morning. My name is Andy Shep. I'm a conservation technician. I'm working on my second year here. I believe in September will be 2 full years. Chris, if you wouldn't mind going to the next one quick, I'll talk about my past. So I have kind of an unorthodox kind of finding Marathon County compared to the rest. You can tell, first off, I never went to Stevens Point, and I think I'm one of two people here that haven't. I grew up in southern Wisconsin. It's a small Norwegian farming community outside of Madison called Stoughton. And I also used to live in Ukraine in the mid-90s after the fall of the Soviet Union. Went to UW Whitewater, got my Bachelor's of Science in Environmental Science, and focused on GIS, which is Geographic Information Systems. So it's a lot of databasing and map tracking, and it's a great organizational tool. But after working for Dane County Parks for about 4 years, I feel like I was kind of like the last generation that was able to utilize the lakes down there all summer. It's pretty much after Memorial Day into July. The lakes get so green and full of algal blooms that the only recreating that's going to happen on there is mostly fishing. Nobody's going to be swimming too much in there. And the smell kind of pushes a lot of people away these days. So I went back to school. I went to UW Milwaukee. I got a Master's of Science in Freshwater Sciences, kind of focused mostly on surface and groundwater chemistry, mostly on surface water, doing a lot of Great Lakes research. But I was fortunate enough to do a lot of groundwater chemistry work as well. And I was lucky enough to intern at Sauk County, which taught me a lot about conservation. So I kind of broke it down. I kind of simplified it into 4 primary program areas. The first one is groundwater quality. That's been taking up most of my time. We're just about to finish kind of an enormous survey that sampled close to 1,000 wells across the county because we didn't really have that much data on our groundwater quality. And a lot of people that have private wells don't realize that they're kind of their own personal technician. They're the ones that should be testing all this quality for groundwater. But it kind of, a lot of people just assume everything's okay, it tastes fine. And we'll get into it further into our presentation. I can kind of break it down, kind of the results that we've been seeing, preliminary results. The Farmland Preservation Program, I believe Kirk kind of mentioned it, and we'll get into that a little bit later as well. But that's one that throughout the summer, it takes usually about 60 to 80 farm inspections. So it takes up a decent amount of time. We're talking thousands of acres that I have to go out and personally inspect to make sure there's no resource concerns for that tax incentive program. When I pretty much started, I pretty much got launched into the Fenwood Creek watershed improvement. It was a lot of it was my GIS skills for mapping. We'll touch base on this further, but it involved kind of breaking down a lot of the stakeholders in the area based on what kind of production they're doing, and if there's any improvements that we can kind of discover and help some of the ag producers out with. And then lastly, I assist Jared to my left here on surface water analysis and sampling. We've been doing a lot of sampling in Fenwood, Big O Plain, and we kind of now we're going to be stretching out further into the eastern side of the county.
I'd just like to clarify, we did not launch Andy directly into the Fenwood Creek when he started, but that would have been an excellent initiation. I regret not doing that specifically.
Hello, everyone. Jared Motter, Water Resources Technician. A little bit about me. I grew up in Park Falls also with Caleb. I actually graduated from the University of Minnesota Duluth with an environmental science degree. I've been with Marathon County for just over 4 years now, and similar to everybody else here, and just very passionate about the outdoors. Like Andy set me up there, I do a lot of water quality monitoring and sampling. A lot of that is routine monitoring to help us track our pollution reduction, our phosphorus reduction in some of our targeted watersheds. We also do some spot testing for different complaints and runoff events. And then we're starting to branch out and do a little bit more of the lake quality monitoring stuff. Some of the other things I work on with watershed management projects, we've been getting back into doing some design work for grass waterways, diversions, water control structures, things of that nature. So we do provide technical assistance for that. Some of the other stuff I work on, shoreline restoration and habitat projects. The bottom picture there is a shoreline demo site at Lake DeBay Lions Park. down in Knowlton. And then the top one is a fish sticks project on Big Bass Lake. So we do different projects with that, working with private landowners on projects they want to do to improve their shoreline. And then I do a lot of outreach and education things, create a lot of newsletters to try to engage citizens and just get more interest in doing some of these projects. I also coordinate our citizen monitoring program, which is called WAVE, which is the Water Action Volunteers. So that's a citizen science data gathering program where volunteers across the county each get a section of stream that they monitor once a month. Helps us kind of track water quality across the county. And then the last thing, Kirsty asked me to throw this one on there. I've been kind of thrust into the role of PR guy for our department. So I do a lot of the newsletter creation, flyer creation, anything with sort of a design. I guess I got that now. So
You've got the eye, Jared.
got the eye, I guess.
Yep.
Eye of the tiger.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, so I am also a pointer. I think if you surveyed all the natural resources professionals in Wisconsin, probably 90% of us are. UWSP has the largest college of natural resources in the United States, so that's why you keep hearing UWSP over and over. I've spent a good chunk of my career in the driftless part of Wisconsin, so I had a similar role in Trempealeau County, which is the county directly south of Eau Claire County. So very different landscape than what we have here in Marathon County. I was used to being, in the ridges and the coulees, dealing with, corn being planted on 20 to 30% slopes. And a lot of the work that we did there was actually the restoration of trout streams. So my heart is still very much in that. Jared knows I'm dying to do a project like that here in his water resources realm. We do have trout streams here in Marathon County as well. So it's just one of my little personal dreams to do something here. Between Trempealeau County and Marathon County Conservation Departments, my family did actually move to northern Lower Michigan, the Traverse City area, which is what you see pictured there. That beautiful beach was 8 minutes from our house. So it was very hard to leave, but I got to lead a conservation team with American Bird Conservancy for a specific type of bird called the Kirtland's warbler. They are the rarest songbird in North America, and they live in northern Michigan in the summers and then in the Bahamas in the winter. There's a couple of them in Wisconsin in the UP. We're trying to create more habitat for them, but a very interesting species if you ever want to Google it. So I've been at CPZ just a little over 2 years, but this area is not a foreign territory for me. I'll get into that in a minute. This is where I'm from. So I did not break down into specific tasks what I work on, because at the end of the day, the county conservationist role is just the person that's steering the ship and making sure we're, navigating in the right direction we're supposed to be, but we're all on the same boat together. And that's what I love about our department, is we are truly a team that strives to be in unity and supports each other in what we do. The county conservationist is over the conservation program, but also at CPZ, we have a management team where our different program areas that are managers, we all work together to manage CPZ and make management decisions together. And then Lori Miskimmons is our director of those managers. So I enjoy being part of the management team as well. I spend a lot of time just kind of dealing with communication and being the liaison to administrative tasks with our different agencies. So since we are funded very, very little by tax levy and mostly by grants and funding received from state and federal partners, a lot of what we do, you have to keep in contact with those partners and get them the paperwork that they need, get them the reporting you need, be the storyteller telling them of the successes of what we're doing with their grant money so that we keep on getting that. And so I don't get quite as much time out in the field as I used to in years past, because I spend a lot of time doing that, communicating and administration, but there's so much good news that I get to tell people that it truly is a joy serving in that role. The one part that tends to be a little bit difficult or heavy at times is that our department does do a lot of enforcement as well in Marathon County. So it's probably a good 30 to 40% of my time that we deal with enforcement. To be honest, it is sometimes frustrating to me when people say angry words about your department department needs to do something, you need to, step it up and get after people that are polluting. I mean, truly, our department, I would guess, does some of the most conservation enforcement in Wisconsin. We always try to work with people and have enforcement be the very last resort if needed. It's extremely rare for us to go to enforcement right out of the gate unless it's something extremely horrible that happened that was not an accident, that was purposeful. But otherwise, we always do our best to work so hard with the farms and try to, bring sources of pollutants into compliance before we go down the road of enforcement. But it's necessary to do as well. And we try to keep in mind that there's just as many folks in Marathon County that are paying us and wanting to make sure they do have clean surface water and safe groundwater versus a couple of angry people that are so mad that, we're saying you need to follow the laws. So we try to be cognizant of that as well. We end up doing a lot of speaking engagements. We're going to take some time to talk to you guys about some of that. And I just want to say that I also feel absolutely privileged to work with the best conservationists in Wisconsin. So that's one of my take-home points I would love for you guys to take home today is that we have such a phenomenal conservation team. And I could not custom pick a group of conservationists out of hundreds of them in Wisconsin better than this team right here. They are so knowledgeable, so skilled, they're so caring. And when I say that there's never like an ounce of drama or, bad feelings, ill will towards each other, I am not lying. That is the truth. So it's so rare to have a team like that. That's the combination of all of those things that I just said. So we're so fortunate to have that here in this county. So just a few personal things. I did grow up on the eastern lake side of Marathon County in Rick's neck of the woods. I went to school with his daughters, graduated from Wittenberg-Burnhamwood. I went to school first for a couple years in Madison and then finished at Point, but I never lived in the area as an adult. So it was very interesting to me to move back in the past couple years with my family and experience the Wausau area as an adult. Not to mention it's completely different than, 20 years ago when I left. I had to use Google Maps to figure out, how to get around with all of the new highway interchanges and everything in Wausau that are new developments for me. So my favorite hobby is botanizing, and that is a verb. Everyone's like, are you sure that's a real word? Yes, I'm sure it's a real word. So some people go out and hunt for animals, and I just love to go out and look for plants. I do not pick them, but I love taking pictures of them. And then I'm a member of a couple of different groups and databases where you track the location of especially rare plants. And so I love orchids. That's a picture of showy lady slippers. And so I literally take trips to go on public land to find rare plants and orchids around the state, which is just so fun, good, clean fun. So usually you'll find me either out on a bike or exploring public land with my family. And these two little critters do keep me pretty busy. I have a son and a daughter. They love the outdoors too. I just couldn't resist putting that picture of my little guy in his outdoor vest and gear. He's always ready to go. So, yeah. So that's a little bit about us. We wanted to take the time to just kind of build the foundation between each other and help you guys feel comfortable trusting us, knowing a little bit more of our backgrounds and where our experiences are coming from, so that when we're making decisions together, you feel like you are asking people who are qualified to have these discussions with you. Yeah. So do we have any questions or comments before we go ahead, John?
Thank you, Kirsty. So there were two questions I had written down that I had thought of as we were having our introductions, and one of them is, I know this isn't a zoning meeting, but how does the zoning team interact with the conservation team when we have those the public hearings?
Yeah. To be honest, we try to stay out of most of the public hearing side of zoning stuff as much as possible. There's not a whole lot of cross interaction between what you guys see in these meetings and what we do. We do have daily cross interaction because, for example, the Farmland Preservation Program, there is a zoning component of farmland preservation in our county, and then also people are in signed contracts in that program, which the Conservation Department manages. So that's one example of programs where both zoning and conservation are working together on the same thing. Similar to animal waste permitting, so they need permits through the zoning department when they're constructing new things, but then that's all supervised by the conservation department. Not to mention we just work together and help each other out. The zoning department loves conservation. So when they can help by, like if we have a manure spill that we can't get to or something, they're like, oh yeah, let's go. They love it. And so it's great that we've actually trained some of them in on some simple conservation tasks, just because if we're all busy and they have capacity to do that, they really enjoy it, which is cool to see.
Great. And then I also had one more question, and this is mainly towards Brooke. She doesn't have to actually answer, but I'm curious about the results from the vermicompost on the ginseng results. So maybe as an aside, or if you want to give those results now, I'd appreciate it.
I can give a really quick result. So I studied the effects of vermicompost, but then vermicompost tea. So the compost, we didn't find any differences with applying compost to it, but the vermicompost tea, we did find an increase in yield that accounted to a $16,000 per acre yield increase in profits. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can you give just a brief description on relationship with the Golden Sands RC&D, as how you guys work together?
Oh boy, that's hard to describe. So Golden Sands RC&D is a resource conservation district? RC&D. Okay, Resource Conservation and Development. So there are a couple of them in Wisconsin. They tend to break into regions. So we are a member of Golden Sands RC&D. They are a nonprofit conservation agency. They're one of our partners. We actually contract them out to handle an aspect of our conservation program. So what we contract them out for is to handle all of our aquatic invasive species management in Marathon County. The Wisconsin DNR gives every county in Wisconsin small amount of money every year to handle aquatic invasives. So plants that are in our lakes and streams and rivers that do not belong there, that they invade and they take things over and push out the natives. We don't want them. So we want to try to controlling them and then also provide education and outreach in the county. So it's, I think each county gets around $15,000 or so a year. So it's not big money. And some counties keep that money and they use it to have conservation staff do activities around their county. Or what many counties do, like us, is we provide that to a contract with a Golden Sands who have full-time aquatic invasive species staff, who that's all they do every day is work with counties. They do lake surveys. They make sure people are cleaning the water out of their boats so they don't have those aquatic plants hitchhiking along with them, things like that. So this county does have a relationship with Golden Sands. We are on their board, so Jared is our liaison to the board, and we do help them make decisions. They're very open and honest and transparent with what they're doing and what we would ask them to do, and they do rely very heavily on what their members want them to do. So yeah, that's a good point to bring up, Val. Okay. Anything else for now? Okay. Good. So we're running right on track. That's the good news. The next thing we wanted to do is just give you guys a lightning fast rundown of kind of the first half of 2024 events or happenings. The reason we wanted to do this is because A, our department is involved in a bunch of really cool stuff. B, we were thinking, if we had to ask you guys, can you each name like one or two things that we've done this year? I don't know that we could even get one or two things from you guys just because we don't normally have time with you at these monthly meetings. So we want you to be able to just have a better idea of the kinds of things we've been working on, speaking at, and doing. Since our department does have a lot of experience, we are very frequently asked to present and be a part of statewide conferences and trainings. And so it's really awesome that Marathon County has that reputation of constantly being reached out to, saying, can you guys come and teach this, or can you showcase that? It's truly to the point where it's overwhelming, and we do have to say no to probably close to half of the requests we get just because we're so inundated with those requests. But it's a wonderful problem to have. So we're just going to kind of start at the beginning and, like I said, lightning fast, just zip through some of these.
Yeah. So it's very important to us in our CPZ department to provide continuing education, public outreach to our community members. And so Kirsty and I presented this spring, late winter, the Good Ideas Conference, which is a continuing education for adults to learn about current events happening. And so we were asked to talk about the current state of agriculture in Marathon County and then regenerative agricultural practices that were being implemented in the county. So we presented on that this winter.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm going to talk and mention a little bit before, and Matt alluded to it also, about the Nutrient Management Farmer Training. So it's one of we've been, probably 14, 15 years now. It's basically, we work with different partners in our Central Technical College, Mid-State Technical College, 6 counties in the central Wisconsin area, which is, it's unique. There's no other, partnership like it that I'm aware of in the state that works. But basically, we're training, Matt mentioned before, between 40 and 60 farmers a year that voluntarily come through a class to learn how to better manage and best manage their fertilizer and manure resources on their farms for water quality and also for economic purposes for maximizing their profitability. We also partner with Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection on that. And I've been the lead person, or Marathon County's been the lead agency with this group for, like I said, the last 14, 15 years. So in January through March of each year, we do trainings at 4 different North Central Tech and Mid-State campuses to work with farmers to assist them to be better managers. I mentioned that already about the March, January to March. Participation this year was probably, we always shoot 40 to 60, and we hit that 60 mark this year. The majority of them typically are from Marathon County. We are the one of the larger agricultural counties that's in this local consortium. So about 39 or 40 of the farmers this year came through were actually from Marathon County. It's basically a continuing education type training. Farmers are professionals in what they do, and once every 4 years, if they want to work on writing their own nutrient management plan versus paying agronomists or co-op consultants to do the work, come back through class once every 4 years to become trained and qualified to continue writing their plan and be the best managers that they can be. So I think that's all I had on that one.
Mm-hmm. One kind of neat thing to mention related to nutrient management that Kirk and I were able to do in 2023 is we were reached out to by one of the conservation committee members like yourselves in Portage County, and he was concerned because their county does not do nutrient management there, which we so often equate nutrient management with groundwater quality, and Portage County does have some of the worst groundwater quality in Wisconsin, so we'd like to see them do more nutrient management there. So Kirk and I had the opportunity to go speak to the Portage County Land Conservation Committee and basically sell the idea to them of being involved in our nutrient management education classes. And they were excited about it, and they voted to involve Portage County as well. We're seeing a very, very slow involvement from their county, but we're continuing to work with them and their producer-led groups there as well, and we have hopes for more interaction in the future. So that was just one little tidbit of good news in nutrient management as well.
So one of the things that we really like to try to get involved with is youth education, because the youth is our future, and to get them at a young age involved and more focused on this stuff is kind of a cool thing. I just wanted to highlight a couple, and we have a lot more than we do. But one of the cool things that we have recently got more involved with is a poster and speaking contest in the area. And so this is kind of a contest put on throughout the state, and they choose a specific topic that these youth can go after and make a cool poster relating on and kind of show their artistic abilities. And also we go into these schools and talk about what the importance is. So this year was May the Forest Be With You was the topic. And so they have to put these on their posters. I believe this year we had about 8 to 10 schools in the area participating that Kirsty and or I went in and presented to and kind of talked about the importance of trees. But then we had roughly about 400 posters that were turned into us from our from up the school districts, and then we go and rank them, and they go from our area. Then they go to regional, which is 7 countywide, and then they go on to state. And the poster on the left actually was a 4th grader from the area, and she won for poster of the year in the state. So that is the winning poster of the area. So it was really cool to see that come from our county, and we had a whole bunch of really good ones. Another cool thing that we do is Envirothon, which is kind of a skill-based test that these kids from nearby areas or throughout the state come, and they have a whole bunch of categories on conservation. So professionals will get together, they'll kind of talk about it, and then these kids take tests at the end to kind of base their knowledge off that. And then the very last thing was just recently, which was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Actually, an 11-year-old kid wanted to put on a conservation camp. So he reached out to handful of professionals and asked us to assist. So we went down there, and I was able to talk about water quality and soil health with these kids. So an 11-year-old got about 20-some kids around his age together, and they had this camp to kind of go over the importance. And we actually went out to the lake, removed aquatic invasive species, and also had a couple other really cool topics to cover.
The Wisconsin Land and Water Annual Conference was something that we all attended this year as well. It was in Green Bay, Wisconsin. This is an annual conference that's typically the first week of March of every year. As Land Conservation Committee members, you are all more than welcome to attend either part or all of this 2.5-day conference. I would highly recommend it. I don't know the ratio of committee members to staff members that attend, but there is a decent amount of county board members that are there in attendance. Not only is it a great time to network, but the educational sessions are absolutely fascinating, and they have people from all over the state talking about what they're doing in their counties, or there are different conservation partners that are there, not just county folks. So cannot recommend that enough. We'll make sure to give you guys a heads up when that's coming through next year. I had to put this picture of fishing in there because I think we were right on the river in Green Bay, and I think most normal people, after your sessions are done for the day and everything, probably go to bed or go relax or something. And these guys all went out fishing every night, and then were like up literally a couple hours later to go fishing again. They were so obsessed with it, and I just thought that was so funny and endearing. But they caught some monsters. Holy cow. What was the biggest one you guys caught? The biggest walleye? 28. Dang. Yeah, so if anyone wants a good fishing spot by Green Bay, you can see them afterwards. Yeah, and then the Wisconsin Rivers and Lakes Convention, Marathon County was asked to present at that. That is one of the largest conservation conferences in Wisconsin. I think they have between 500 and 700 people there. It's absolutely huge. And Marathon County was asked to speak on the Big O Plain efforts and also creative conservation funding, since we're known for having lots of different funding sources in the state. And so myself and Diane Hansen, who recently retired from our department as the business manager, we both spoke at that conference, and it was extremely rewarding to talk to other lake and river groups there as well and have them learn about the Big O Plain. Everyone loves the story of what's going on there.
So another conference that we actually host, I planned the whole thing myself, with a little help from the team here, is the Heart of Wisconsin Grazing Conference, which I mentioned earlier. So this is a one-day conference that is meant to provide a high-level education to beginning to experienced grazers around the state. It's highly successful. We have over 100 attendees every year, and we really focus on grazing here in Marathon County because managed grazing is the #1 farming practice for keeping our soil in place and protecting our surface waters. And so really promoting managed grazing and making sure people have the knowledge to implement it well to protect our resources is high on our list. So I put on this conference, and we have speakers from all around the state give presentations about managed grazing and how to improve people's operations.
Okay, so this summer, Jared and I, we got a partnership with Vilas County. One of the nice things about up here in north central Wisconsin is we're pretty close to with a lot of the different counties that surround us, and we can kind of afford to have these partnerships and co-ops between multiple counties. So we sampled 2 lakes in Vilas County. It was greatly beneficial for both of us because they have a limited staff up there for the amount of work that they have to do. And it also provided Jared and I a refresher on some of the sampling techniques that we might not have done in the last year or two. So we sampled 2 lakes, Little Portage Lake and Moccasin Lake, which those lakes are between, I'd say, 100 and 250 acres. They're not gigantic, but they're not tiny either. And we were typically looking at biological and chemical analysis. So it's kind of hard to read, but one is a point intercept aquatic vegetation survey. What that is you have a gridded out pattern across the lake. I believe on Little Portage, it was about 257 points. You'd go to each point, you'd have a giant rake, you'd drop the rake down to the bottom of the lake, you'd pull it up, and you'd literally have to analyze and count how many different species of vegetation was there. I think on some of them, we got up to about 15, 16 different species. So it's pretty intensive, but it gives you a good idea of the vegetation that's in the lake that can kind of give you clues onto water conditions and quality. So then next was a water chemistry analysis where we were taking water samples about 6 feet deep in the water column, but we're also dropping something that we would call a sonde, and it's a special device that will measure dissolved oxygen, conductance, pH, multiple different attributes for water quality. And we drop that down, and what you can actually see is over time the differences in conductance and specifically temperature and dissolved oxygen as you kind of went down through the water column to kind of see where the thermocline is and to see if a lake is pretty stratified, where you can see distinctive layers in our lakes, or whether we've got a weak stratification, or if it's starting to overturn, which you'll see typically in spring and fall. We were also involved in an aquatic invasive species survey, kind of identifying some of these pests that are kind of creeping into our lakes and water bodies, unfortunately. A shoreland inventory, so we were kind of keeping an eye on how the shoreland is being utilized, whether there's docks, marinas, any type of landscaping, concrete work, boathouses, anything that could disrupt the shoreline for any type of erosion. And then lastly, a woody habitat survey. This was actually kind of interesting because we would literally cruise around the entire lake looking for any type of woody debris that was, 5 inches in diameter? And something that would provide some habitat for any fish. And then we would inventory that, and ultimately that would get mapped along with the shoreline inventory. We'd be taking photos. So it would actually give you a pretty good map of the entire shoreline and the environment that some of the fish could live in.
These are just a couple of pictures from a couple of those different surveys that Andy and I helped out with. The one on the left is the shoreline inventory survey that he was talking about. So that's kind of inventorying any sort of hard surfaces that might be leading to runoff into the lake, things like that, erosion concerns. And then the point intercept survey is where we're identifying all the plant species across the lake.
Sorry, one last thing on that. I forgot that one of the objectives of this is also to bring this back down to Marathon County to kind of do some of the surveys on our own eastern lakes.
Because we are not currently doing any of this data collection.
Okay, I'll give you a little update on our livestock licensing and maybe some farming activity that's going on in Marathon County. The reason why we're having livestock licensing ordinance in Marathon County is to ensure that larger farms that are expanding are meeting today's what's called Wisconsin Ag Performance Standards and prohibitions. And those are a series of regulatory, environmental safeguards to ensure that the landscape is kept clean, our soils are healthy, and everything's copacetic. This actually came from the farming. This request for consistency actually came from the ag industry. They wanted some type of consistency when their farms are growing. Back in the late 1990s, early 2000, farms wanted some type of consistency across the state for regulations. So these are state-regulated regulations that now Marathon County wants to ensure that our farms are following. So we have a total of now 17 livestock licensed farms in the county, and roughly, I believe there are 14 CAFO farms. Now, CAFO farm is a farm that's over 1,000 animal units. That's governed by the state of Wisconsin DNR. We specifically license farms that are between 500 and 1,000. So I'm making sure that those farms are following those regulations. And I'm also, this is the time of the year that I'm actually going out doing my annual visits on those farms to do walkover, make sure that they're following the requirements, and also asking, are there any plans, are there any changes? Maybe if there are some issues on the farm, we can talk about them. Like Kirsty said earlier, we don't like to go straight to regular enforcement. We rather just work with the farmers to correct the issues if they do have something. So that's our directive. So just to give you an idea of where we sit in Marathon County. When I came on in 1990, there was roughly about 1,500 dairy farms in the county. Today, there's roughly about a little less than 500. So if you just figure 500. But the other thing is that the size of the dairy herd has increased, and so that's nothing new. But when I started, it was around, the average dairy was around 35 cows. Now it's 125, and they're growing. So, it's just the economics of farming that dictates that, and that's pretty much it.
In some areas, they have the problems with the large swine, with pigs and the chickens. Is there anything like that ever happening in Marathon County, or are you just doing with the cows and heifers and all that kind of stuff?
So it has been primarily dairy. We've had a few farms that, poultry farms that have come in, but none of them have been big enough where they would need to be licensed. We haven't had any swine producers come in within the county, and so it's primarily been just dairy.
Kirsty and I presented.
Oh, use the mic. Use the mic. Yeah.
Kirsty and I were asked to present at the Wisconsin Land Information Association Spring Regional Meeting this year. A lot of these individuals that are part of this organization use, like what Andy talked about and I talked about, geographic information systems. And what we talked about at the meeting was how we use GIS to work in the Big O Plain watershed. So here's just an example of one thing we talked about a little at the presentation. We went through the history and everything like that, but then also how we use that database to look at flow paths, where water is flowing in fields, and then how much water is flowing through these areas, and identifying areas for if we need a waterway, grass waterway in that field. If it's a smaller drainage area and let's say a waterway might not be necessary, can we look at what that landowner is doing for tillage, cropping practices, rotations, and can we make suggestions to them to try to reduce erosion in their fields that way? This is a map that Andy put together, but just using, and he'll get into this more, but just using it to track what landowners we're contacting and when we're contacting them, and this is for the Fenwood Creek watershed, but like I said, Andy will go through this a little bit more later.
I briefly mentioned this earlier, but this is our volunteer group that we coordinate. It's called the Water Action Volunteers. This is our second year we're doing it. Currently, we have 12 different monitoring locations across the county with 8 different citizen volunteer groups, and they're all collecting data about stream flow, temperature, dissolved oxygen, discharge, habitat, and those are all good indicators of stream health. Tom was actually a volunteer last year for us. The cool thing about this, it's open to everyone. We have volunteers as young as 8 years old helping their parents do it, so it's a good way to get them involved as well. The stream testing is once per month from May through October. We provide all of the testing kits and materials, and it's just a great way for us to engage with citizens that we don't normally get to work with, plus gather some data about stream health across the county. And then this is the current location across the state of all of our volunteers. It's kind of tough to see, but I remember attending a presentation on this 2 years ago, and there was a distinct hole right in the center of the state. So that's kind of what drove us to get involved, and now we're starting to fill that up a little bit. So,
great. One really neat thing that we had a chance to be a part of recently is we hosted the first ever Young Conservation Professionals Network event. So you all are members of Wisconsin Land and Water and familiar with them. Last year, I was contacted by them because they had a desire to start up a mentorship program that was similar to the mentorship program that our department had started about 2 years ago. And so they recognized that there was a gap in conservation where, we have such experienced professionals. Many of them are getting close to retirement age, and then we have new young professionals coming in, and there's a gap in training for them as well. And so Wisconsin Land and Water had a desire to pair these experienced professionals with groups of young professionals, and they developed a mentorship program mirroring what we do here. And then they also developed a new group called the Young Conservation Professionals Network. And so that kicked off at the annual conference in March, and then we were asked to host the first event. And so this is a flyer for a great training that we had here. We centered it at the Big Old Plain County Park. It was on June 13th, and we had almost 100 young conservation professionals from around the state come, and we took them out to a couple of different farms, and we helped teach them how to identify resource concerns, like leachate leaving the feed pad or manure going into a stream, or feedlots that were close to wetlands and running into streams. It was extremely rewarding. A lot of them were just even in their first year of their career. And so it was really neat to be a part of helping to train those new professionals. And we're thankful that Wisconsin Land and Water saw that need and did what they could to fulfill it as well.
Okay, so some of our groundwater efforts, I believe we're finishing up our third or fourth round of sampling, getting close to about 1,000 private wells tested. We split this up into two parts just because of the size of our county. The first one in fall involved mostly the Eastern Lakes area, pretty much anywhere from the Wisconsin River and east towards the county line. And then this spring, we're finishing up everything west of the county line. And we're pretty close to about 1,000 wells. The picture in the upper right there, that's just one of dozens of, trays that are filled with water samples from across the county. And we've got some preliminary results in, but we're still waiting on about 300 samples before I make any type of presentation on the data itself. But kind of through our groundwater, this kind of spawned the marathon method, which apparently now is statewide known because of the DNR.
Viral.
It is. This was really, I mean, it's just a pragmatic approach to tackling groundwater issues. It's getting the public health department involved. And then once we kind of identify areas or a well that had popped for some type of contamination, what we do is we kind of look at our groundwater maps and then develop it between a 1/4 mile and a 1/2 mile radius around that place and kind of contact a lot of the neighbors. Not disclosing any type of private information, but just to notify them that somebody in the area tested positive for, let's say, nitrates, for example. It would just be good due diligence if you tested it as well. It's only, you know, the amount of money it is based on the effects of your health, I think it's just a no-brainer. But then, you know, some of these people that tested positive, a lot of the questions were, well, what do I do to fix it? How do I remediate my well, whatever it is? And that luckily is where the ARPA grant applications came in. I believe we were second in the state for the amount of ARPA application grant money received. And this kind of goes to the groundwater quality from Portage County. They were number one. So it's a double-edged sword. It's great that we're receiving the money, but it's terrible that we have to receive the money at the same time. And this kind of developed into getting contacted by the DNR regarding the Athens municipal wells. Their rising nitrate levels were concerning them because they were afraid once they hit about that 10 parts per million for nitrates, they'd have to invest on an expensive treatment system that would drive all the residents' costs up. So what we did is we applied for a $10,000 grant through the EPA, specifically for the Athens area to kind of promote a lot of conservation practices. We're still in the planning for that, but luckily we received not $10,000, but $35,000 for our efforts there. And so now we're in the planning process on how best to utilize that money for the citizens and the residents of that area. But on the next slide is some of the results.
I just wanted to provide just one or two sentences of context just for our new committee members as well. So in the last term, this committee approved using Marathon County environmental funds, so funds that we previously received from transmission lines. So around $200,000, ERC championed that request to bring it before the full county board in an effort to get 1,000 private wells tested in Marathon County. So Marathon County has never collected data on our groundwater collectively before, whereas all of our neighboring counties and most of Wisconsin has. So we were behind in terms of what counties are typically doing for groundwater efforts. And so the past just under 2 years is a combination of this committee and this staff kind of taking the mission and taking it off running, doing a lot of this stuff for the first time ever in the county. So when Andy is discussing
and I'd be remiss if you could go back one. The picture in the lower right, that was one of my first ARPA grant application success stories. They are an elderly couple out by Athens that, I mean, they were spending thousands of dollars on bottled water when I showed up. I mean, their foyer was covered. It was hard to get in to the house. And we were able to secure about $16,000 for them so that they could get a whole house treatment system. So now she doesn't have to, on an icy December, January day, run to the grocery store to get a bunch of bottled water and then lug it back. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we created a video, which we won't show you here today,
Yeah.
but to apply for our EPA grant, we created a video just storytelling the example of the Von Lows in Athens, not being able to drink their water wasn't safe. And this county worked with them to apply for an ARPA grant. That's DNR money, that ARPA grant. We worked with them to get that state money to get a full system put into their house where now they have beautiful, clean, clear drinking water. So they're all holding a glass of tap water that they were able to cheers together and enjoy drinking, which is just the most rewarding feeling ever.
Okay, so here's some of our preliminary groundwater results. These are not finalized. These were, I would say, half of the western county, including the entire part of the eastern side of the county. If you look on the pie chart, it's a little hard to read on the left. More than 50% are considered contaminated. Now, I wouldn't worry too much because when I broke that down, a lot of it was based on two different factors. There was a public health factor and an aesthetic factor. So the EPA still has standards on aesthetics, like, for example, iron is a big chunk up there. Not going to be too much of a health crisis, but more of a plumbing issue, a smell issue, aesthetic issue on some of your faucets and things like that. So there's still a standard there. But in terms of public health, what I'm looking at is mostly nitrates, bacteria, lead, arsenic, depending on the chloride levels. And then in the lower right, it's called DACT. It is a trizene test. So that's going to be typically looking for compounds similar to atrazine, which was pretty low in this county. The one that was concerning was manganese. In that chunk of 32% of positive cases for manganese, I would say half of them met the aesthetic criteria, where you're going to see some issues with your plumbing fixtures in terms of like a black sludge that kind of gets hardened, and the insides of your toilet reservoir will be pretty black. The other half was a little concerning because they tested over the public health limit for manganese, which can have more neurological impacts, Parkinson's-like disease, tremors, and things like that. It goes after your central nervous system more. So these are just preliminary data, but overall, I believe, talking with Dr. Kevin Masaryk down in UW-Stevens Point, we're pretty close to the average on a lot of the contaminants, but that doesn't mean that there isn't work to do when it comes to remediating some of this.
Mm-hmm. So stay tuned on groundwater. We will have Dr. Masaryk present you all with the full results, probably sometime early this fall. We'll devote, probably a good chunk of an ERC meeting to talking through those results and what that means for you guys as policymakers as well. So that was just a really quick recap of some of what we've been working on this year. We just have a handful of events coming up here shortly that we wanted to tell you about because you are most welcome to join us. Always. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I host pasture walks all year round. And so I have a lineup of pasture walks there that you can't really see on the screen. The next one being on August 13th at a diversified dairy grazing farm. So you guys are welcome to come. I have a Facebook page where I post all of the pasture walks. It's called the Clover Belt Grazing Community Facebook page, so you can follow us along there. Otherwise, if you guys are interested in coming to pasture walks, please reach out to me and I can get you guys a schedule for you to be there.
Mm-hmm. And we'll follow up with emailing you all a copy of the PowerPoint too, in case you want to look through some of these details.
One event, this one's coming up pretty fast. So this one's on Friday. So this is called the Wisconsin River Basin Bash. This is the first annual, hopefully, and hopefully keeps going on in the future. So this event is for all producer-led groups that are like our group called EPIC and the entire Wisconsin River Basin. So this was a small grant-funded event that was actually, they reached out to our group, EPIC, so we are considered, they view us, I guess, as a higher up one. So they reached out and said, hey, we got this money. We want to do something with it. So they reached out. We came up with a cool idea to invite the whole entire Wisconsin River Basin up to our big old plane, and we have a couple groups with their hands in the pot. So we got a couple of our producers going to be presenting. We got our Lake Association giving us pontoon tours on the big old plane to show kind of what the lake is about. And then we have a really cool event showing our rainfall simulator and kind of the agricultural practices on that. And then also some really good catering. We're going to have a whole roasted pig there. So please come on and attend. The RSVP link is on there. If not, you can just show up, and we have some T-shirts for everybody at the door as well.
2 p.m. this Friday, Big O Plain County Park at the big shelter right by the beach on the water. So you are all welcome.
I can remember when the ERC committee went out there and we got a pontoon boat ride out there and we had a nice meal afterward. That's been several years ago, but
Oh,
we did that.
nice.
The ERC committee did that one time.
Okay.
I think we'll have about a half a dozen pontoons, so there should be plenty of room. So please attend.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also thank you to ERC for allowing us to accept the $6,500 in grant funds that we received to do this event. So you guys get a lot of random requests being like, we got this money, please let us accept it. And so this is just a culmination of you let us accept the money. This is what we're doing. So we're expecting people from all over Wisconsin to come to the Big O Plain County Park. It's really neat. Another thing that you're invited to, this is part of Wisconsin Land and Water. Again, we're all members in this room of the North Central Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation Association. So we're split into a couple different regions in the state. Every summer, there is a tour for land conservation staff and committee members. So that's you guys. This tour this year is hosted by Langlade County. So their county seat is in Antigo. So that is Friday, July 26th. 9:30 to 12:30. It's just a couple hours. When counties host this in the summer, they take you around on a bus and showcase a bunch of conservation projects they've been doing and farms that they've been working with. And they talk about programming that their department does. So it's one of those opportunities where you go, you support each other, give each other a pat on the back, network with your peers in other counties, and just have a good couple hours together.
Something new we're trying this summer, we're trying to expand over into the Eastern Lakes or the Eastern Lakes part of Marathon County. We do so much work in the western side. Sometimes we forget about our citizens over on the eastern side. So this event is kind of catered towards showcasing some of the unique things out there. We're going to be providing some hiking and kayaking tours at Rice Lake, Norrie Lake, and Mission Lake. I believe you have a flyer in front of you. The first one is next Thursday at 5 o'clock at Rice Lake. And Chris Hammerla from Golden Sands will be there as kind of our aquatic plant expert. And we'll also have some people there from the North Central Conservancy Trust talking about their conservation easement out there, and also some people from the Ice Age Trail talking about their new boardwalk they have out there, and just kind of providing some cool education about some of the things going on out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Rice Lake hike on the Ice Age Trail there is a beautiful little hike. It's like a nice little 2-mile segment with a super cool boardwalk going through a bog all around Rice Lake, totally unmarked. It's a hidden gem. You wouldn't even, there's not a sign anywhere saying how to get there. So it's so cool once you discover it. Tell all your friends, but family friendly. Bring kids, bring the whole family. Great event. Okay, our department is also hosting the summer meeting of the Wisconsin Lakes and Rivers Partnership on August 6th of this year. Wisconsin Lakes and Rivers hosts training 2 times a year for all DNR professionals that work in surface water resources, and then also similar agencies like Wisconsin River Alliance, things like that. And so we were very honored that they contacted Marathon County and said, we want to come to Marathon County. We want to hear all about what your team is doing in the Big O Plain watershed and in the Fenwood Creek watershed, and how you guys are working on getting more conservation on the land, and then also just engaging other partners in your programming. And so we're having all this DNR staff coming and listening to us for a day in August about what we're doing in our conservation approach. And so if you guys are interested, you are of course welcome. It's once again at the Big O Plain County Park. It's getting lots of PR today. Wow. Okay, and then this is the last one we wanted to tell you about. Wisconsin Land and Water contacted us, letting us know that the Wisconsin Counties Association would like to host a farm tour with Wisconsin legislators, talking specifically about conservation program funding in Wisconsin. So basically, walking around a farm, seeing different types of practices, and then discussing, why do we have a need for conservation staffing? What would Wisconsin look like if we didn't have well-funded conservation programs? What would it look like if we weren't able to offer any type of cost share to our farmers to do things like put in cover crops and put nice grass waterways in their field? And so it's really kind of like a training for those legislators to try to persuade them that we need this type of funding in our state. And so how awesome that they thought of us here in Marathon County in terms of having an example of showcasing that on a farm, and then also trusting in our abilities to be persuasive that we have good things going on here. We want those legislators to walk away and be like, wow, this is really great stuff that's happening. How do we see more of this? So thank you to Tom and Miltrim Farms for agreeing to host this. We do not have a specific date slated yet. We still have a few dates on hold to hear from the legislators, but that's expected to happen in September. So that's very exciting, and it'll also be a good opportunity for you guys to meet with some of our Assembly and Senate legislators as well here in Wisconsin. Whew, that's a lot going on. Okay, great. Do you guys have any questions? Is anyone's head spinning yet? Nope. Okay. Okay, how about we take a quick break? Since we've been talking for a bit now, if we want to reconvene in about 10 minutes, if that works for you guys. There's hot coffee in the back. There's homemade cookies. There's a Zillman's meat and cheese tray with some crackers, bottles of water. Please help yourself. Oh, is everything okay?
Should have said that. Yeah. This was true. Oh, yeah, no problem. If you got notice of it.